Good morning, guys. I think I got a good one today. The idea just, I guess, has been fermenting. And I saw a couple of YouTube videos relating to kind of the topic that I'm going to cover, which is basically weed versus spirituality. Smoking weed, is it preventing you from living your full potential? Is there something? Is it something akin to being a functional alcoholic if you're smoking weed on a regular basis? Because I'm talking about myself, and I don't really know the answer, but I do. But I wonder about the journey that I've taken. I don't really have regrets. And I feel very blessed for the life I've had. That being said, there's still a question of connecting with your higher purpose and spirituality and your full potential. It doesn't mean that you can't be grateful for the life that you have and still see where could be improvements, maybe your own productivity or how you're compensated, your job, your all that stuff, what you're doing basically. It's all connected. And for someone who considers themselves a functional pothead, basically what I would, just to define that as, so you guys know what I'm talking about, is I smoke every day, multiple times a day at this point, and it's pretty much, I'm not going to let it, obviously where I'm in New York State, and it's legalized or decriminalized or whatever, you can smoke basically recreationally. I don't really go outside my house a lot and smoke, maybe a couple times here and there. But I keep it away from my kids. They don't really know about it or anything like that. I keep the drug paraphernalia away, hidden away. And I don't really have a lot of friends anymore that smoke. I have very, very conflicting ideas on it, basically, because I've quit before, but basically I smoke at all available opportunities, with an understanding of there's certain times where there's a time and a place, and if I don't have any major responsibilities, then I'm not going I'm not going to smoke. If I don't have any, I will, is essentially what I'm saying. And obviously there's been times when I've done more or less, as I'm trying to either control myself or just completely let go, and I'm just trying to more or less escape, which is kind of what the weed has turned into at this point, is an escape, which is not good, but it's like, so it is a coping mechanism, it is a crutch, but it doesn't hinder me completely. For me, being a musician, I can see where it it has maybe inspired me or put me in a creative mood, in a mode, and given me a perspective, where I feel inspired to create, and it does that for me, consistently, and it's I also have to be in the mood for it, and I can do it without it, but I feel like I get into a flow, and there's always a different outcome. I get more surprised, I believe, and excited about it when I'm, kind of under the influence just a little bit. But that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is the escape. And this thing I see it as the kind of duality that we live in, where there's things that are, what they provide, in the short term, maybe a long term, what is perceived in the short term as a benefit might do harm in the long term, might add up and be bad. And I between all of the possible substances out there, personally for me, pot, weed, marijuana, whatever, that's the only one that I really struggle with letting go of. But it's also the one that I perceive doing me the least amount of damage. So I've justified it, and the thing is I've also vilified it. So I have that duality in my mind. I know that most people will see it as kind of a I watched a video the other day where the guy described it as like a warm blanket of mediocrity. And I don't think he's wrong. I think that's an acceptable, but what is he's also like, saying all these kind of very cliche things that are like, he's still watching the Joe Rogan Experience, even though he just put out this thing about basically tripping balls to like help people off of heroin and stuff, and all these weird therapies that are who knows. So it's very hypocritical, and it's also, he was saying that he's turned conservative and all, and I've gone through that whole political thing, and I've come back to a place where it's not the center. It's being able to see both sides, and kind of, and people don't like it, but you have to cherry pick all of these political things, and come to your own conclusions on them, and you can't just pick one side, because it's set up. Obviously, it's set up, and it's like a comedy, the way that everything develops, where everything will cycle through, so you become the opposite. The villains become the heroes become the villains, right becomes wrong, wrong becomes right, and it's cycling through kind of these different trends, and it's just so they can have something to argue back and forth and to capture people's minds and attention. So I've always seen patterns and bigger pictures and stuff like that, and knowing where the road, dealing with depression is a part of it, but knowing where the roads end up for a lot of the things that I wanted to do, being kind of tempted by rock and roll music, early on, getting kind of programmed to to want to write or record, or at least I feel like I have been programmed by, and maybe I've programmed myself, but I feel like it's out there. But that's, it's all part of this thing where it's like, what I'm saying is, how extreme does my life need to be to make a point? I don't need to be the greatest thing in the world. I don't need to be the richest. I don't need to be the fastest. I don't need to be the best. Mediocrity is like basically saying you're a normal person. And I don't mind that. And the thing is I feel like if I was not smoking pot, like I have this struggle with it, and but it doesn't make me happier to be sober, is what I'm saying. It doesn't necessarily make me more introspective, or I don't know. I feel kind of like a sense of when I'm sober. Like almost a superiority that I'm just not partaking in stuff, and that's like an ego thing. That I, it's also like a guilt shame thing. If I have that shame, and so I, sometimes I might hesitate or whatever, but I also have worked through that emotionally a lot, where I just try to be available for people, and I try to say the things that are on my mind that I think are going to bring love and light and positivity into the world, and basically starting conversations with people, saying things that I think should be said, speaking up for people, surprising people, just very casual things that not everybody does. And I'm just taking the accountability to do all that kind of stuff. And I'm a functional pothead, basically. So I'm more than halfway to my work, I believe, and I'm at kind of like what the halfway point is right now. So I'm going to switch the topic a little bit over to the spirituality and weed, because that was another aspect. And I think both videos that I saw that were about this, and I've seen probably dozens of videos about this over the years, just because it's coming to my algorithm, and I click on it because they know I'm a pothead, they know what I'm doing all the time, so and they know that I'm probably struggling with that, and that I'm also this religious person that's like I'm not. I have been religious. I'm not religious right now, meaning that I'm not practicing anything. I am listening to different scriptures from like the Upanishads and some of the Eastern stuff, and the Puranas and the Vedas, but there's like you could never get through all that stuff sincerely and retain all of it, and then there's a lot of stuff that's contradictory. So there's a lot of stuff to even where you even start with that. But anyways, that's basically the thing is I went through Christianity, and these two guys are coming from the lens of Christianity, and I've lost respect for Christianity and Christians, and I don't disrespect Christianity or Christians, but going through it, I've realized that the majority of these people don't do their homework, and it's all very surface level. It's like almost take Scientology. People can get into Scientology and improve their lives. And that result of getting rid of basic sin that is pretty much obvious, like almost just health advice, improves your life greatly. Just exercising, just not doing drugs, just all that stuff improves your life greatly. The thing is that there's a lot of hypocrisy because the sin is rampant and abundant and abounds everywhere, and everyone is, and the people, at the higher up you go, it seems like the more corrupt and sinister the people actually are. And it's kind of a mechanism just for control as far as the religious institutions are concerned. There are good people, and I think that a lot of this stuff is compartmentalized, but it's the entire machine and the mechanism that props that up. Because you can't have the compartmentalization without the entire thing, or else that it just would be, mismatched puzzle pieces of an idea. So what I'm saying is, and getting back to the weed thing, these guys were just saying, so there's a couple things. Dreams. I have had dreams, and I've smoked for a long time. The issue is that I don't meditate on my dreams. I don't go back. I have had dreams, and I've remembered them for a brief period of time, but I don't retain my dreams. And like when I wake up, if I know that I've been dreaming, I might think about it for a little bit, and I might remember it for that morning, but it's just not very significant. But a lot of times, I will just wake up and I knew I was dreaming, and it's the significance of the dreams I just don't, I guess they're not as vivid and lucid and all that kind of stuff. And I've never really been one to be able to lucid dream or astral project or anything like that. Like I've tried meditation and stuff. And the thing is, when you're into Christianity, they want you to meditate on the word, and they the transcendental meditation and all this kind of new age stuff, which is just basically regular meditation, but I haven't really gone into the litter of transcendental meditation. I know that a lot of people say it's basically like there's some culty stuff to it, and it's probably just the people who it's going to, anything like that is going to turn into a cult, is my point. And even weed is like a weed culture. There's a weed cult, and the fact that I don't I'm not even a part of that culture. I kind of am doing it on my own. It should make it easier for me to kind of just drop it and let it go. And I have before in the past, and like I said, there's improvements in certain things, and you can get your dreams back and stuff like that. But it doesn't make life more enjoyable necessarily. And yeah, I don't know. I think there's truth in it, in both things. It's like, the whole Christianity idea and it cutting you off from Christianity is like, is it cutting you off? Is that one path? Is it the path? Is it the only path? I mean, maybe. And is weed making me spiritually blind to that? Maybe. But walking that road, I didn't feel sincere. And it's not because I didn't feel like, I wasn't convinced at the time that I had a serious, a real, actual come to Jesus moment. And, I had a testimony and everything, how I got saved, and I knelt down in my kitchen and, I heard a voice. But I've always doubted that, whether that's my, whether it's my higher self and it's actually like an aspect of a higher divinity above myself. But that's kind of more what it felt like. It didn't feel like I don't know if it was Jesus or not, but I felt like, I was confused. And that right there, it was being made clear to me. And I cleaned up my life like after that. But the thing is that it was just like, yeah, all my friends, I was ostracized by all my friends. I felt like I was getting closer to the truth. It ostracized me from my family, like my wife, everybody. But you look at the scriptures and it says that, like, it's, it says all these things. It's like, well, so it's proving itself. And I understand, I do understand the deeper, how this stuff works. But for me, I'm not totally convinced, basically. There's a lot more to get into. But I still think that everything's going to be all right.